Hey everyone, and welcome back. Now today we're going to talk about ICP and what we've seen going on recently with the chart. We've also saw actually really interesting interview with Dominic Williams, so I want to talk a little bit about that. The World Economic Forum is heading to Davos, Switzerland, and obviously ICP is based, or Definity I guess I should say, more specifically is based within Switzerland. So they're going to be there obviously talking to people, trying to spread the good word about ICP and the internet computer and all the possibilities and promises that it could potentially bring. And so I want to talk a little bit about that today. Also just go over what we've seen on the chart, because we have seen ICP, at least so far, it seems to hold up at this really key level of support that we have been bouncing off of several times over the past probably 6 to 8 weeks. So we'll talk about that. Starting out though, I did want to take an overall look at the market. We can see some pretty strong pumps moving through the market overall at large. You can see virtuals up 7.3%. We talk about them fairly frequently. We got Bonk 15, Hyperliquid at 15, S, which used to be Phantom over here at 20% almost, M&T at 14, AI16Z at 40% today. We are seeing that like they had a pretty strong sell-off. If we look at the month, they topped at close to $2.5 billion, bottoming out over here at about 790 million and back over $1 billion market cap. So AI16Z potentially seeing a little bit of a rebound. Back to what we are focused here on the video today though, ICP up only 2.5%, not super great. If we look at the week, a little bit more mixed though, and overall I don't actually think we've seen ICP. Yeah, you can see ICP about flat for the week, so not a whole lot going on there. If we do take a look though, we can see a whole bunch of things moving pretty heavily. We can see Link doing quite well, Aave doing quite well, Solana doing quite well, Bonk, XRP, HBAR, Fartcoin, Radium, Litecoin, DEXI. I mean, we've got a whole bunch of different things doing pretty well. So, we're starting to see a little bit of an interesting kind of divergence within the market where everything is not going up only, but there are certain things here and there that are actually moving pretty dramatically. So overall looking pretty good there. Before we get into the ICP chart, I did just want to do a quick overview of the ICP dashboard though, because we can see getting close to 4,800 transactions per second, comparable to what we're seeing out of Solana right now. Obviously, the transactions that Solana does and the transactions that ICP does are not necessarily the same, but we can actually see the ETH equivalent transactions would be almost close to 2 million transactions per second. So we can see that just the transactions are inherently much larger on ICP. So not necessarily apples to apples when we are just looking at straight transaction numbers. But even without that, I mean, we can see that transactions looking really, really nice on the ICP ecosystem. This is not something that we typically see in crypto. I know we've seen some pretty decent raises in transactions per second on Solana, but I would say Solana is probably the exception, not the rule. Other than Solana, there aren't really too many chains that can compete with the throughput that ICP is doing. Also, we can see the cycle burn rate continuing to trend to the upside, which is really, really good to see, mainly because we can see here the total burn of ICP. If we look, we are actually approaching 1 million. Not quite there yet, but we can see that the trend is definitely looking good. The slope continues to steepen, at least from what we're seeing so far. This is all fantastic news. Looking at this from like a fundamental perspective, it's really hard not to be pretty optimistic about where we could potentially be going with ICP. Same thing here, canisters continually getting deployed, transaction rate. It kind of stayed a little bit flat here recently, but it has been kind of trending up if we look over a longer period of time, maybe about a year. Going over this, we can see, still sitting around like 4,000, but a slow trend to the upside. So things looking decent there. The cycle burn rate really has been kind of the big winner of the year here for ICP. This is what's been increasing the amount of ICP burned, which is of course reducing the inflationary pressures on the ICP ecosystem, which is again a really, really fantastic thing to see. Now moving on, if we want to take a look at the ICP chart, some pretty interesting stuff going on. Things looking good here. We can see that this kind of level, I keep a line here, as I've talked about in some of my other previous videos. I don't necessarily love just having like a specific line, just because it's kind of more of a zone, right? And we can see kind of with this zone here, if we probably put in something kind of like let's say this, we can see we're reaching up into this zone over back here in like the beginning of November before we started to see ICP really move pretty aggressively. We can see price dipping in here in like the end of December. You can see price dipping in here kind of at the very end of December, beginning of January. Then we can also see price dipping in here recently. We've come out of it a couple of times. We saw that mass liquidation event here, also here, and then today we actually did see a little bit of some selling off, but obviously we're seeing a pretty strong bounce now. We have reclaimed that $10 mark, and so things looking really good here. We could be shaping up like we see a potential bounce maybe back to this like $11 range. We have seen that happen in the past. We did actually also see a run up to about $12.50 here at the very beginning of January, so it's possible that we see a nice run to the upside, and who knows, depending on how this kind of market shakes out, we could see potentially a breakout. If we do look, we have been seeing lower highs and we have been kind of seeing consistent lows. So again, if we were to show, maybe using this trend or this liquidity zone as like the lower level, and then we probably put something of a trend line probably like that actually looks pretty consistent here. So if we do take a look at this and use this kind of as our guide, we can see that we are essentially bouncing off of the bottom of this wedge here. And then again, just for clarity, maybe let's put the wedge, maybe we'll do something like that. Again, obviously we've got some wicks below it, so not perfect, but we can see this is a pretty decent point of support here. We've bounced off of this point of support, potentially running back into this level of or this descending trend line that we have seen ICP follow relatively closely over the past, what is this, since the beginning of December, so almost 2 months at this point. So given where we're at right now, we'd be seeing kind of the 1070 to 1080 range probably, again depending on how quickly ICP pumps, but probably the 1070 to 1080 cent range is likely where we would be running into this level of resistance. Of course, we could maybe come back down, take another bounce off the bottom, and then potentially look for a breakout. If we look to see a breakout here on this upper trend line, realistically, I think we probably see maybe the like high 13s. Then from there, we'd be looking at kind of recent tops at about the mid 15s. And then from there, we're probably looking at, kind of what we've seen earlier on in 2024 at like 17, 19, and then about 21 is probably kind of how things would look there. This is a pretty textbook wedge. We've seen kind of a lot of the altcoins forming a pretty decently sized wedge that we've seen price consolidate after this move to the upside. So things looking pretty good there. If we do see this breakout, that I do think there's that possibility that we see runs maybe even up to like that $21 range, and then again potentially we start to see something form similar to that up at a higher level. Again, this is what we're always looking for in a really nice like bull or a positive greed-based environment. We're looking for higher highs and higher lows with points of consolidation for price to kind of find its footing, and then again we continue to move to the upside. So overall, things looking really good so far on the ICP chart. We can see from RSI actually sitting below average right now, so tons of room to run from like an RSI perspective. And then also if we do look at Bollinger Bands, the Bollinger Band upper band is sitting here at about $12.50, so we do got quite a ways to go until we potentially run into that as well. So things looking pretty nice for ICP, things looking primed potentially for another move to the upside. If you are looking to take advantage of some of this formations that we are seeing on ICP, as well as many other altcoins and cryptos like we did just talk about, you can feel free to use my link in the description below to BTCC. They are doing the 10% bonus on first time deposits, which is a fantastic deal. It's basically 10% free money. I don't know anybody who doesn't like free money, which I think is great. Also, they have the extra bonuses of up to $10,055 per user in addition to the bonuses. So basically BTCC is throwing a whole bunch of money at you to come and trade with them, which is pretty cool. They've been around for 13 years, so they've been, they've kind of got a really great track record. Not much risk of them being like a here today, gone tomorrow type of exchange. Again, it is crypto, anything can happen. But then also they've got 300 plus crypto futures, up to 500x leverage. Again, I would not recommend trading up to this level of leverage just because it's super risky. But again, if you have some strategy that works, maybe it'll work for you. Then also no VPN or KYC necessary if that is something that is important to you. So really interesting kind of set of things there. Like I said, if you are interested, just check the link in the description below and you can go on ahead and get signed up. Now, moving on, I wanted to take a look at a video posted on X. This is essentially an interview with Dominic Williams, like we talked about earlier on in the video. It's about an 11-minute video. You can see I have liked and reposted it. So if you want to watch kind of the whole thing for yourself, I didn't want to make this video too long. And so I have only taken probably about a 1.5 to 2 minute kind of split here that I just want to show you kind of some of the highlights. But I would strongly recommend watching the whole thing if you are interested, just because he does go over a lot of really interesting things we've talked about on the channel before, and kind of reinforcing what the overall vision for ICP is. So anyway, let's go ahead and take a quick watch here.
Well, there are lots of reasons why people at WEF should support the Internet Computer Project. Firstly, it's very important to have a public infrastructure that people can build on as an alternative to big tech. People should have a choice. And many of the benefits that the internet brought as a network are also brought by the Internet Computer as a compute platform. So that's one reason it's important. Another reason it's important is that cybersecurity is an increasingly big threat to the world, and the Internet Computer provides a solution, because when you build a website, internet service, a web application on the Internet Computer, it's tamper-proof, which means that it's immune to traditional forms of cyber attack. You don't even need a firewall to protect it. So it provides the world with a solution to that. And thirdly, the self-writing internet paradigm will be a tremendous democratizing and empowering force around the world.
So anyway, that's just kind of a little bit of the snippet there, where we're highlighting kind of the top 3 things that ICP is really kind of going after as far as improving, Web3 and just the overall internet computer kind of paradigm, a lot of that type of stuff. And so anyway, that's what I wanted to talk a little bit about going on there. Hopefully, if you are interested, like I said, I have reposted that on my X account. The links and all that stuff to my X account are in the description below, so you can go on ahead and check that out. Watch the whole thing if you are interested. Like I said, it's a very, very good video. I highly recommend taking the watch because it is worth the time in my opinion. But overall, that's kind of what we had to go over today. There's a lot of really interesting things going on. I want to talk a little bit about Caffeine AI and touch on that, because we did hear a little bit, not necessarily directly about Caffeine AI, but kind of the self-writing internet and that new type of paradigm, a lot of that type of stuff that we're essentially referring to Caffeine AI, especially when we're referring to ICP, right? And so because of that, they actually were talking about the possibility of years, which I think is interesting, because I think that there was a lot of sense that maybe it was a little bit closer than that. I was expecting to see something maybe a little bit closer than that, and who knows, maybe this like demo that they've been talking about within the next immediate future, again, when that is, we don't know for sure, but that type of thing is, maybe that was just like a very, very early alpha stage demo, and there's still a whole bunch more work and writing and stuff to do, but I'm really interested to see how they end up dealing with that, Caffeine AI, and potentially like competing against other companies in the more like traditional Web 2 space, because this is huge business right now. And so if ICP can come up with some novel innovation, or maybe even just be first to the punch, a lot of that type of stuff, they could see some pretty ridiculous success just in like the wider mainstream adoption, not even just within crypto specifically. And so this is something that I am keeping a very close eye on. We'll have to see, kind of what the timing and expectations are. I know that they've played Caffeine AI pretty close to their chest. Given that we haven't seen much like marketing or promotional materials on their like X account, maybe this does kind of lend to the argument that they are a little bit further away and they aren't even really starting marketing at this point yet, just because they haven't seen too much progress there. Again, I can only imagine how difficult this is. So, I'm not going to be that armchair developer that's sitting here like being like, why is it taking so long? I don't like, I'm sure it's wildly complex, and they want to do it well and come up with a product that's actually useful. And so because of that, obviously, we do need to give them a little bit of grace, but it's also, while emphasizing the importance of essentially how important this could be getting there quickly and obviously as quickly as possible. Because if we're too slow, somebody else might figure it out, and then they're obviously moved on to that, and then we've kind of missed the opportunity. So always something that's important to consider. Hopefully you did find the information in this video useful. If you did, please do give me a like and a subscribe, because it really does help me out. I do spend a lot of time making these videos and whatnot, so I'd love any feedback that you guys have for me, any comments, questions, concerns, anything like that. Just drop those in the comment section below, because like I said, I love the feedback. I really want to hear from you guys about if you enjoyed it, if you didn't, anything that you'd like to hear more about, hear less about, all that type of stuff. It's all good feedback. Any feedback is good feedback in my opinion. So I would really appreciate if you do that. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next video.